Hello everybody and welcome to the Reglow channel. We're going to be continuing our mask drape with Pipple, and I know last time the sound wasn't working very well, but we got the sound working this time, and so we're going to continue with this mask, and we're going to continue on the journey of the stitches here. And I welcome you to sew along with me if you want to, or draw, or make anything that you feel like you want to spend some time making. And before we do that, we're just going to ground into the earth and then expand into the cosmos. And I welcome you to do that with me, just to feel into the embodiment of where we're at and where our source of life is emerging from. So if you first, if you want to be in a comfortable position, I'm standing up right now, so you can stand or you can sit or you can lay down, but we're just gonna feel into our toes, and then feel into our feet, and then all the way up our legs. And as you breathe, imagine that breath going all the way to your toes and filling up your body with every breath. To fill it up with your life force, and then feel your energy, fill your body all the way up your legs to your buttocks and your pelvis and your belly button and the bottom of your spine, and then all the way up through your torso. And then we're gonna feel all the way up into our heart and our shoulders and out our arms and up our neck and into the back of our head, around the top of our head, into our face and our eyes. And as you feel all these parts of your body, fill it with the air, fill it with the life force. As you breathe, and you feel into our nose, breathing in the nose and out the mouth, and then into our shoulders and out into our hands, into the palms of our hands and our knuckles and our fingertips. Okay, and now as we breathe into the fullness of our body, every part of it, we imagine that energy going down and out our feet, down into the earth, and to connect to the roots of all the other trees and plants, and all the way down and through the layers of the earth into the core of the earth, and then back up into our body and out into the cosmos, out into the stars, out into the center of our galaxy. And as it goes into the center of our galaxy, to everything that exists there, and then comes back down through our head and through our body, and then it creates this pulse from the core of the earth into the cosmos, and we're balanced in between through our breath. And I have an extended version of this meditation. If you're interested, I'll post it in the description. It's more of an extended meditation if you want it. It was made to do before making or before creating, to center our energy and feel embodied as somebody making something or working with materials and transforming things. So this is Pipple, and we're going to go into a process of stitching with Pipple. It's like storytelling with the stitches. And as the characters of these materials unfold, so does our journey with them. So we started this mask last time. We have a multi-layer, this is 2 layers of silk as the part of the mask, and we were working on binding it. So we can continue with this. I want you to be able to see it well. Okay. So this is the velvet from a childhood jacket that I had. And I turned one of the sleeves into some bias strips. And then I used one of those strips for this binding. And this is going to go over bridge of the nose. So it's going to be something soft on the nose. Is it going to like a little cushion for the smells? For what you smell, for what you pick up on. If something smells familiar, if something smells repulsive, I think we all have different reactions and responses to smells. The smell. So I was thinking, you know, what's really going to guide this journey of stitches together? And I want to be guided by my heart, and I want to be guided by an inner illumination of with clarity. Getting clear. becoming clear, cultivating that clearness. Clarity on my notes. Yeah, and smells change too, like how I perceive a smell will change depending on my relationship to it, whatever it is that I'm smelling, but it will usually be telling. And as we stitch along the velveted bridge of the nose. Oh yeah, last time we were calling it a velvet sandwich because this binding is like sandwiching the edge of these two layers together. So, where is our attention? As I am stitching along this path, it was like the sleeve of my childhood, or part of the sleeve of part of my childhood is now becoming a bridge of the nose for this mask. And it's also a sandwiching these layers. And I want to just, something I want to make clear is that as we move through these stitches, if you're going to listen to me and join this, I'm making metaphor and analogies to the things that I'm saying. And you can, I'm interested in hearing how you relate to that, or how you might relate to that, or if it reminds you of something. And if you want to comment it, I'd love to hear about that. And also if you want to comment your own metaphor or analogy to something that you're experiencing in your present reality. Because as we cultivate our imaginations along this journey, it's like the story is just unfolding from the present moment. A lot of times silence is where I like to be, at least when I'm sewing, and maybe I'm reflecting on my internal thoughts, but I think subconsciously I'm picking up on what's around me in the ether, and maybe things that I might be carrying too. And so it's like working through those things I might be carrying to come into the present moment with you, with people, into the intersubjectivity of all that I'm surrounded with. And then depending on what it is that I'm engaging with. So if I say something and it makes you think of something totally unrelated, this is a place where we can follow those trails and then see where they take us if we glean new insight about it. And I think this could be applied every day, in any way in our lives, as we pass through, as we go through the existence, and as we this is coming along, as we let go and as we flow and as we grow. And so, as I see the velvet, do you see? I wonder if it'll focus. I want you to see the texture of the velvet. If you caught a glimpse of that. In any case, these fibers what creates a velvet is a fiber that's imagine if there was a loop. Imagine if there was like a bunch of loops going through the fabric and taking tiny little stitches out of the fabric. And then if that was cut, and then the loops were like hairs still attached, then that is velvet, only really condensed. And so that is what this texture is. And it creates a soft, this texture is very soft. It doesn't always have to be soft. But that's what this is right now. Is all these little hairs. And they won't be growing. They won't be growing anymore. But this is not about permanence. So I will say that it's relatively soft hairs that are going to rest on the nose. And what I'm doing as I go through each side is I'm just making sure to catch the edge of each side as I go through to the other side. If you can see here, I've caught a little bit of, well, now it's not focusing, but I've caught a little bit of that edge of the binding What do we bind? What do we hold dear? What's in our water, really? Do we charge it with our love? Do you charge your water with love before you drink it? Love and gratitude. I mean, I'm sure there's all sorts of things in it, but what is the frequency? What is the pattern? Because that seems to be how something is made to manifest. So it's just like we're going across the top edge here. Sealing off these two layers with the softness of the velvet from the childhood. The softness of the wonder. No preconceptions. We are in awe and wonder. Maybe there were preconceptions. Because apparently we start learning and picking up patterns and frequencies from the womb. This velvet piece is also reminding me of the womb, of this place that's where we're protected. Place that's soft, and we're just floating. We're just floating in there and growing. So during this time, how do we reach each other's hearts? Through the constructs. How do we really embrace each other, the realness in all parts of ourselves, and sit in that place and feel like no matter who we are or what we've done, we're still connected. We're still a part of all of existence. And then it goes into the multidimensionality. And what is the multidimensionality of these fabrics and these materials? Maybe it's these love poems that I'm sewing into their seams. Something that they will carry in their existence. What were the love poems that were sung to that have been sung to your existence? And what does your heart say when you quiet your mind? Mine says to be here now, to be love and flow in the present, to be full of this joy no matter how excruciating. The reality presents itself. And then I ask, what is joy? And it says, bring back this surrender to now. And then I ask, what is resonance? And then my mind says, well, we have a book called Resonance. And in it talks about the axes of resonance and what creates it. An axis of resonance must be charged. And so, dear fabric, dear velvet sandwich, how might our axis be charged? Through this, through exactly this. This is our axis being charged. It is in a place of this I now remember that this mask, we had the gathers condensed into the center. We had the gathers, we gather in the center. We gather in from our center, even though where virtual nodes like the planetary alignments and to align with those as we orbit around each other and feel each other. We remain centered in our being, and the gift that I think, that I feel is happening, that I'm receiving now during quarantine is like just practicing this constant awareness whenever I can, cultivating the awareness of the reality of my thoughts, and especially as that relates to my relationships, and like just being true, just being honest with myself. And when I catch myself thinking, like feeling shut down by another person based on my imagination, like if I can catch myself and be with myself in that moment, then I'm not perpetuating that frequency, and then I can transmute it into love and reach beyond the construct of societal programming, reach beyond that, and just be present with my spirit and my soul. And I know some people don't believe in spirits and souls, and then that makes me wonder, like, how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel your feelings? Do you even feel your feelings? If you do, how do you feel your feelings? I'm curious. And then it also makes me wonder, like, maybe, I wonder if it comes from this place of like not wanting to define the sacredness of life and feeling hesitant or reluctant to do so, and instead saying I don't know. Or maybe you really don't believe that, but that's fine. You don't have to resonate with my spirit soul analogy, or at least I don't expect everybody to. But that doesn't mean that I can't express my experience. No. So here we are at the end, tying off the bridge. Wow, everything that I just said over the past "41 minutes is like That's what we stitched into here. And there's so much more, because there's the life that was before this, and the jacket, and before the jacket it was being dyed in mass production from the Gap, and before that it was a cotton fiber. Growing, and before that, the descendants, the seeds of the cotton, the places that they grew, the occupied territories that they grew, and now, what will be? What will be? Okay, so I think we can just tack it on to here with a pin. Oh, that was too far over. Okay, we need to readjust. Readjust. Okay. So yes. There's the flower on the head. What else? There's all this binding. There's all this binding. Then there's this part. Where does this go? Oh, this was going around the chin, maybe. Okay. These parts, these are like drapes of the forehead. Oh, 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 oh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Pipple, I like your bangs. Maybe we'll keep it. We could add more bangs. And then down here we have this part, so it's like I kind of maybe this could go like that. Oh, Pippa. So this green ribbed material, if you watch the first video, you might be able to gather that this was a tank top. It was my grandmother's tank top. And now I've cut it up. I think I can cut this strip. I imagine that she would garden in it. And so now I imagine how this piece is a garden, or I wonder how it relates to a garden. Okay. Definitely need to make some texture from the scraps, because that's what I feel inspired and called to do right now. The texture from the scraps. I just cut this bit off. 2 bits actually. They were from the shoulder seam that has now become the forehead seam. And in this new life, the texturized bits becoming maybe not a weight off of your shoulders, but it's like your shoulders, maybe your shoulders were really tense and they were lifted up, and now it's like relaxing the shoulders. Yeah, I feel that, like, what's gonna happen? But no, it's right now. That's what's happening. It's the present moment. And as my shoulders relax, you know, that's just maybe a response to something, a reaction to something. Could be conscious or unconscious reaction to something in the environment. And I'm turning it in on itself. And that action or reaction is being turned in on itself to enclose, to envelop itself, to see itself, to face itself, all sides of itself, the inside, the outside, all parts. All coming along. And in facing that tense, you see it. And you're no longer running away from it. You're facing it. And it no longer holds that power over you because you're facing it. For me, I'm facing it. And so here we are. But now, once it gets down to the bottom, it's very narrow. And I'm wondering how. It's like so narrow. What will go through this tunnel? I don't know if anything can even go through it anymore. water, that water could go through it. Okay. And facing it. Are you facing something that you never wanted to see before because you thought all along that you didn't need to? Maybe because somebody told you you didn't need to. Well, I don't know. It's hard to come full circle here because it's hard to really envelop these last parts. The end. It's so narrow, it's not turning. It's narrow, but it's still pliable. Definitely still pliable. So, before the fray, capture the edges of the fray, the edges of the entanglement before it frays, in order to bind it, in order for it to be something that has bound because it's collapsed upon itself. And then, can you see this? No, not happening. Well, the sun is going down today. And the sun. So I'm wondering if I ever really woke up, but I think doing that deep breathing and that grounding was helpful. Right? Right. Okay. But just one entanglement at a time. When we get to the end of the line, that's all there is. It's one entanglement at a time. An entanglement here is like the tiny looping of the knitted fibers. This entanglement is being bound. And I remember that I'm binding the tension. I'm binding that whatever it was I was carrying on my shoulder, whatever it was that grandmother was carrying on her shoulder, it has collapsed. And I might have to even cut off this bottom part because it's just barely dangling on there. But my grandmother passed from this plane about 5 years ago. And I feel like she never left, but she never wanted to leave Earth. She would say that she would be on Earth forever. And I believe that whatever you believe is where your energy will go. And so she's here. She wanted to be here. So grandmother, now I'm binding this weight from your shoulders. Even though you already let go of it. Just following my own processes of existence. Okay. There we have it. Wow, it really stretched out. Oh, grandmother. Oh. Okay. Make sure that we keep breathing. Keep breathing to that pulse. Now we're going to do the other one. These are kind of like bangs. but also kind of like green hairs or horns. I like them in the front like that. Okay, the next shoulder. We got the next shoulder. Time to bind it up. Bind up those tensions. If the other one was the right shoulder, then this one would be the left shoulder. So we got our bases covered, although it is, I'll say, either the front or the back of the shirt. So technically there's two other shoulder seams, but you know, we carry our weight in different places, so if this is what's coming out, then I'm gonna say that these are binding those tensions exactly where we need to be right now. Being enveloped. Being enveloped. It's like, I keep thinking of growing up in a Christian church and my mother. No, it wasn't my mother. I don't remember. Somebody, actually, I don't even know if this was growing up. This might have been later on. There was this woman who was a Christian, and she would tell me about binding the devil in the name of the Lord. In this situation, that's not what I'm doing, because I don't really believe in that cosmology or that doctrine of belief. I think that, so when I'm thinking of binding something, I also wonder where that came from, because it's not like they just made it up from nowhere. But when I think of something that's bound, something that's like held in place, that's what I'm thinking of. So I think it could be restrictive. If it was a weight, if it's a weight or something that, or if it was a tension or baggage that was being carried and now we're binding it, well, I don't really know what that baggage is. I don't know that I need to identify that, but energetically could be any number of things. But the sense of binding it is like, binding is kind of a restriction. It's kind of like forming something through a restriction. And definitely here we see that as I bind this piece all the way down, the form is becoming elongated. So, what insight can you glean from that as a metaphor for something in your life? Restricting, something to form something. But I was also saying that this is like something collapsing on itself. Wow, I think I've been out of the camera for a long time, but I'm just doing the same old thing. The same old thing, what's that? Collapsing, enveloping, restraining. Yeah. So, this feeling of restraint. And what does it form? Well, in this situation, it's forming some horns or some green fiber hairs. Okay. We see that the sun is going down outside. And now, moving on to this next part. I'm going to remove some of these, or just place these out of the way for a moment so we can get where we want to be, which is joining this seam here. So I'm going to flip it the other way so that the seam ends up being on the inside. And just pin it in place while I get my thread ready. Some milk bottle tops. These could be horns too. Eventually we're going to go around this flower too. With a blanket stitch. Gonna hold it up here for now. Yellow thread or green thread? Green, okay. Yellow. Okay, I'll do yellow. Oh, these slow stitches. Okay. You see these 3 circles? These 3 green circles on the forehead? That's like the mind warp. So as we start this next journey of stitches, making a knot into the seam, cutting off the tails. And hello. That was my roommate. I don't think he probably wants to be in the video, but he could if he wanted to. Okay, I don't really want to be in the video. At least my face. But my presence is here. We're here. Pipple's here. Me and my intersubjectivity with Pipple. And so what I want to do is open up my imagination to a cosmic story. Because that's a place where the Earth story can expand. Yes, we're doing a blanket stitch here. And I think what happens every time my imagination expands into the cosmic story is that it becomes really abstract and I don't have words. I could interpret the sounds. You want me to interpret the cosmic sounds? Do ba de bla da bla de bla, keyboard ga de go, li lo la. Okay. I'm thinking of how I can recognize those sounds and those frequencies as a part of this present experience on Earth. And here it becomes apparent as I stitch these layers together it becomes apparent in that there are layers. So the layers are apparent. What else is apparent? Apparent to whom? Whom do you parent? Is it something of a nebulous equation? Is it something of your tampering with your own existence? Now I want to look up the etymology of parent, but we got here because of apparent, which would be to appear as something. Appear. So when did this material first appear? Probably in a time of the least resistance to its arrival. When that factory was making tank tops, and then there were people buying the tank tops through supply and demand. And in a post capitalist economy, whenever that may be, how does this arrive? How do you arrive to a place you want to be? Through the journey of following my heart, because then I'm always where I want to be. Is that true for me now? That is true for me now. Okay, so we got the top. Say we got it on there. Through our hand stitching regalia. And now, before I secure this pleat in place, I would like to finish off this edge. And before I pull the thing down to do that, I need my red thread. Okay, so now I'm thinking about supply and demand. But I'm gonna clear that. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to stitch the forehead. You know, yeah, we're gonna stitch it this way. That's gonna do a curl. We're gonna curl. We're gonna roll it. We're gonna roll a little curl. Rolling the little curl down. Rolling a little curl down to be where we want to be. Curling down down the forehead. Just accepting where we are, accepting where we're at. In my mind's eye, how does that relate to my other eyes? As the two eyes beneath my forehead see what appears before me in the curling of the forehead covering. My mind's eye now sees electric hues, multicolor of blue and green and yellow and fuchsia and red. And these slow stitches morph and then there's the eye of the camera, and your eye where you sit each translating as we might like to find an equilibrium in this experience. Finding this equilibrium that features the night and the day. Here we are as the sun is setting in the northern hemisphere of the earth, might I add. We're sitting here, standing here, finding equilibrium. What is past? What is present? What is the present? How do you perceive the present? How do I perceive the present? The present is curling The present forehead shade is curling inward with the red thread. And then in this abstraction, we see something that's cycling. And that is the stitches. They're cycling in, capturing two layers together. Two layers together and one in between. That's like a dream that drips from my eyelids. And as I awaken, I remember that I drank too much cod liver oil over the past 2 weeks, and have learned that that's too much cod liver oil, and that I didn't need to drink that much, and I don't think that I will ever do it again. And as I come in more in tune with my body and realize that that's what it was that made my stomach hurt, then I have clarity. Listening to our bodies. Oh. How do we hold ourselves? And how do we hold each other as our foreheads curl? And on the subject of glowing, just be careful. Don't drink too much cod liver oil. You might think that it might make you glow, but then if you drink too much, this is your warning. No glow. Recovery time. But that's okay. We live and we learn. So glowing amidst the current reality. Glowing like from the inside out, from every morsel, of your being. What does a glow feel like? Like this spark from within? Is it like your solar, all your chakras radiating, emanating their frequencies in a balanced, harmonious way as we relate to the atmosphere around us? What is a glow? Is it an essence the essence of your identity that has emerged? That feeling of emergence. Being in a place where we are both supported and challenged is a place where we can flow and grow. I got that from a lovely diagram in Dr. Leticia Nieto's book, Beyond Inclusion, Beyond Empowerment. When what we were challenged in and then how we're supported need to be equal for us to be in this flow and this growth. And so we reflect on what is supporting us. That's a nice hair forehead curl. Yeah. Reflecting on what is supporting us, what is challenging us, and what is supporting us. Well, right now, what is challenging me is to verbalize and articulate the cosmic frequencies and weave them together, embedded into the story of these stitches and into this mask. And where I feel supported is in the collaboration between all of these materials and the lives that they've already lived. And so it's more of me developing how I want to translate it, and I think it will be a process. And thank you for being here with me. I would love to hear how you're processing as well. If you want to comment, if you want to subscribe and be notified when I go live for future videos, so you can be here with me. Okay. So there's one. I love it. I love it. Okay. The next one. as we do this, as we make this pleat. It's like the pleated bangs. Can you see this side that I did? These are like antennas. All your antennas. Feeling so connected, Pipple. So connected. What are you receiving? Oh. Pipple's receiving a lot of information. Should I translate some of it, Pipple? Okay, so we've just gone through the eclipse in Gemini, and now, and it was a full moon. Now as those energies wane, we release. But it's not really an effort to release them, because what is not appearing in our reality is released. And what is present with us here is where we're at. So there might be some more thoughts to release, but it'll be very easy now to release those thoughts. But like we were going through that process of binding and enveloping and facing those things, like they're not just going to go away, we have to actually face them before we can let them go. And through that process, we'll find what we need to let go of and what remains. And we'll have another 6 months until the new moon in Gemini to reestablish how we're communicating. Thank you, Pipple. Okay, so now Now we're going to attach this binding and So we're going to attach the binding along here. This was the original binding from the armholes and the neck hole on the tank top from grandmother's garden. And so we're going to bind it. But there's these two pieces here, so I'm going to join them with their faces together. It's dark. The sun has set. Okay, so now this binding, this binding as we join these bindings together. We're seeing how each new bind is has a similar kind of quality to it, a similar action, a similar motion. Right now we're not actually binding, but we're attaching the sides of the binding together to create the binding. And we're doing a blanket stitch again. And this process keeps getting caught on the needles. The mind warp has fallen. after the mind warp falls and resurfaces, now you see it's rearranged itself. These ends of the binding together. Why do you keep turning off? How long has it been? About almost 2 hours? Okay, well, here we are. We're just making the ends meet for the binding to go across the top. What is it? What is my identity even? Because I don't. Yeah. I love when thinking about identity and thinking about the energy that emerges from my being, and how that is my identity. It's really not in any of these constructs. Not to say that the constructs don't affect people's energy. More so just to say that that's where my true identity is. Where's your true identity? Keeps turning off here, so I think we're going to continue with this next time. Thank you for being here and going on this journey with me. We'll think about where Pipple's identity lies until then, and yeah, keep glowing. All the love.